In Dubai, where gold flows like water and secrets hide behind crystal facades, the most expensive wedding of 2024 lasted exactly 14 hours. The marriage? 47 minutes. By dawn, the bride was dead, the groom had vanished, and a $500,000 celebration had become the city's most twisted crime scene. But here's what the police didn't know. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was a carefully orchestrated trap that had been set in motion 2 years earlier, and everyone, including the victim, was exactly where they were supposed to be. Welcome to True Crime Anatomy. I'm your host, bringing you the darkest secrets from the Middle East's glittering cities. If you're new here, subscribe now because today's story will shatter everything you think you know about love, tradition, and the price of perfection. This case made international headlines, but the real story, the twisted game of cat and mouse that led to murder, has never been told. Until now, meet Ahmed, 31 years old. Real estate developer, millionaire by 25, heir to one of Dubai's oldest merchant families. To everyone who knew him, he was the perfect Emirati gentleman. Respectful to elders, generous to friends, traditional in all the right ways. But Ahmed had a secret obsession that would make your blood run cold. In his private study, locked away from prying eyes, he kept detailed journals. Not about business deals or family matters. About women. Specifically, about testing them. For 3 years, Ahmed had been running what he called purity investigations. He would identify educated, independent women, the kind who threatened traditional values, and systematically expose what he believed were their lies about their past. He'd done this to 3 women before our victim. Not murder, but something almost worse. Complete social destruction. His method was always the same. Hire private investigators. Plant friends in their social circles. Create fake social media profiles. Build elaborate psychological profiles. Then, when he had gathered enough evidence of their impurity, he would orchestrate their public humiliation. But this time, something went wrong. This time, he didn't just want to expose her. He wanted to marry her first. Why? Because Ahmed had evolved from predator to something far more twisted. A man who believed that by cleansing Dubai of impure women through marriage and then revelation, he was doing God's work. The wedding wasn't arranged by their families, as everyone believed. Ahmed had orchestrated every single detail, manipulating both families into thinking it was their idea. He had spent 2 years setting up this elaborate trap, and our victim had walked straight into it. Or so he thought. Now meet Layla, 26 years old. International business graduate, fluent in 4 languages, daughter of a respected government official. Beautiful, intelligent, everything a traditional family could want in a daughter-in-law. But Layla was carrying a secret that was slowly destroying her from the inside. During her university years in London, she had been in love. Really, deeply in love with a classmate. The relationship had lasted 2 years before ending when he returned to his country for an arranged marriage. For the past 6 months, Layla had been receiving anonymous messages. Photos of her with her university boyfriend. Screenshots of their private conversations. Text messages that simply said, "I know who you really are." At first, she thought it was her ex-boyfriend trying to rekindle their relationship. Then she thought it might be someone from university playing a cruel prank. But as the messages became more detailed, more threatening, she realized something chilling. Someone had been watching her, studying her, documenting her every move for months. Suspenseful music. When the marriage proposal came from Ahmed's family, Layla's blood ran cold. Because she had done her own investigation, and she had discovered something that changed everything. Ahmed wasn't just her potential husband. He was her stalker. The anonymous messages, the surveillance, the photographs, it was all him. And now he wanted to marry her. But why? What was his endgame? Layla made a decision that would seal both their fates. She would marry him, but she would be ready. But there's another layer to this twisted story, one that makes it even more heartbreaking. Both families, these pillars of Dubai society, were drowning in secrets of their own. Layla's father, despite his government position, was facing bankruptcy. His wife's cancer treatment had depleted their savings, and mounting debts were threatening to destroy everything they had built. This marriage wasn't just about tradition, it was about survival. Ahmed's family was equally desperate. Their real estate empire was built on illegal land deals and government corruption. They needed connections, legitimacy, and most importantly, they needed Layla's father's influence to avoid prosecution. So when Ahmed approached his family with this perfect match, both families jumped at the opportunity. Neither cared about their children's happiness. Neither asked the right questions. They were all so desperate for their own salvation that they handed their children over to fate. And fate, as we'll see, had something truly horrifying in store. What happens when a master manipulator meets someone who's been planning their own revenge? When predator meets predator? When two people enter a marriage not for love, but for destruction? The answer will shock you. But first, let me tell you about the web of lies that had been spinning for 2 years, drawing everyone closer to a wedding night that would end in blood. What do you think? Is Ahmed a calculating predator? Or is there something even darker at play here? And what about Layla, victim or vengeful mastermind? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe because part 2 will reveal the twisted surveillance network that made this tragedy inevitable. Trust me, you won't see this coming. 2 years before the wedding that would end in murder, Ahmed attended a university alumni event in Dubai. It was supposed to be a simple networking evening, but it became the night that changed everything. Across the crowded ballroom, he saw her. Layla. She was laughing with a group of friends, elegant in a modest black dress, her intelligence shining through every conversation. To Ahmed, she appeared to be everything he valued in a woman. Educated but respectful, modern but traditional. He watched her for hours, studying her mannerisms, her interactions, the way she carried herself with quiet confidence. That night, Ahmed went home and created his first file on Layla. He told himself it was just curiosity, maybe even genuine interest. But within weeks, curiosity had become obsession, and obsession had become something far more sinister. Through careful social media investigation, Ahmed discovered Layla's secret. Photos from her London university days showed her with a young man, clearly more than just friends. The images were innocent enough, holding hands, laughing together, a kiss on the cheek. But to Ahmed, they were evidence of deception. In his twisted mind, Layla had become a fraud, a woman pretending to be pure while hiding her shameful past. Instead of moving on like any normal person would, Ahmed made a decision that would ultimately lead to murder. He would expose her. But not immediately. He would create an elaborate plan to systematically destroy her reputation, just as he had done to 3 other women before her. Ahmed hired a private investigator, a man who specialized in what he euphemistically called reputation management. For months, this investigator followed Layla, photographing her daily routines, recording her phone conversations when possible, and building a comprehensive profile of her life, her fears, and her vulnerabilities. But Ahmed didn't stop there. He began infiltrating her social circles through fake identities. He created multiple social media accounts, using stolen photos and carefully crafted personalities to befriend Layla's acquaintances. Through these fake personas, he learned about her job, her family's financial struggles, her mother's illness, and most importantly, her deep shame about her past relationship. The harassment began subtly. Anonymous messages would appear in her inbox with cryptic references to London. Fake accounts would comment on her photos with veiled threats. Ahmed paid people to casually ask her friends about her reputation at social gatherings. He wanted to isolate her, to make her paranoid and vulnerable. What Ahmed didn't know was that Layla was far smarter than his previous victims. After weeks of mysterious messages and strange coincidences, she began to suspect she was being watched. Her background in international business had taught her about corporate espionage and surveillance techniques. She started paying attention to patterns, taking notes, and conducting her own investigation. The breakthrough came when Layla noticed the same username across multiple platforms making subtle inquiries about her past. She traced the account back to a fake email address, which led her to a phone number, which ultimately revealed Ahmed's involvement. But what she discovered next shocked her to her core. Ahmed hadn't just targeted her. Through careful online detective work, Layla found 3 other women who had been systematically destroyed by the same man. All were educated professionals, all had past relationships, and all had been publicly humiliated and driven from Dubai after their secrets were exposed. One woman had attempted suicide. Another had fled the country in shame. The third had been disowned by her family. Layla realized she wasn't just being stalked. She was being hunted by a serial predator who used tradition and honor as weapons to destroy women's lives. But unlike his previous victims, Layla wasn't planning to run. She was planning to fight back. When Ahmed's family approached hers with the marriage proposal, Layla understood immediately what was happening. This wasn't an arranged marriage. It was the final stage of his twisted game. He wanted to marry her first, then expose her past, maximizing both his control and her humiliation. But Layla had a plan of her own. She would marry him, but she would use their wedding night to destroy him instead. She began secretly recording their conversations, documenting his manipulative behavior, and gathering evidence of his stalking campaign. She contacted his previous victims, building a case that would expose his pattern of abuse. What neither Ahmed nor Layla realized was that their families were playing their own twisted games. Layla's father, despite his respectable government position, was drowning in corruption charges. He had taken bribes for years, and now his enemies were closing in. His wife's cancer treatment had been a convenient cover story. They were actually desperate for Ahmed's family's money and connections to avoid prosecution. Ahmed's family was equally corrupt. Their real estate empire was built on illegal land deals and government fraud. Ahmed's mother had developed a serious addiction to prescription drugs, spending thousands each month to maintain her habit. His father knew about Ahmed's obsession with exposing women but enabled it because he believed it made his son a strong man who wouldn't be deceived by modern women. Both families saw this marriage as their salvation. Neither cared about their children's happiness or safety. They were using Ahmed and Layla as pawns in their own desperate games of survival, actively hiding information from each other while pretending to follow traditional values. The wedding planning became a battlefield where everyone was lying to everyone else. Ahmed was preparing to expose and humiliate his bride. Layla was preparing to destroy her stalker. The families were using their children to save themselves from financial and legal ruin. And somehow, all of these twisted agendas were going to collide on one horrific wedding night. What happens when multiple predators circle the same prey? When everyone is hunting and no one realizes they're also being hunted? When a marriage becomes the ultimate trap, but no one knows who will be caught in it? The answer lies in the most expensive hotel suite in Dubai, where a $500,000 wedding celebration was about to become a crime scene that would shock the world. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll take you inside the wedding night that ended in blood, and reveal which predator ultimately became the prey. The wedding day arrived like a perfectly choreographed performance, but underneath the golden facade, 2 predators were preparing for war. 500 guests filled the ballroom of Dubai's most exclusive hotel, completely unaware they were witnessing the final act of a 2-year psychological campaign that would end in murder. Ahmed played his role flawlessly, the respectful groom, kissing his father's hand, accepting congratulations with humble smiles, his eyes never leaving his bride. To everyone watching, he appeared nervous but happy, a traditional man about to start his new life. What they couldn't see was the anticipation burning in his chest. Tonight, he would finally execute the plan he had been perfecting for months. Tonight, he would expose Layla's lies and watch her world crumble. Layla was equally convincing in her performance. She blushed at the right moments, lowered her eyes when spoken to, and played the part of the innocent, nervous bride to perfection. Her hands trembled slightly as she signed the marriage contract, which guests attributed to wedding day nerves. But the trembling wasn't from fear, it was from adrenaline. Hidden in her wedding dress was a small recording device. Every conversation, every moment of the ceremony was being documented. She was building evidence that would destroy Ahmed and expose his crimes to the world. The families beamed with pride, each believing they had secured their salvation through this union. Layla's father saw government protection and financial security. Ahmed's father saw legitimacy and political connections. Neither suspected that their children were locked in a deadly game that had nothing to do with love or tradition. The guests posted endless photos on social media, tagging the event as the perfect Dubai wedding. Traditional drums echoed through the ballroom as ancient ceremonies were performed, each ritual masking the modern psychological warfare happening right in front of them. The bride and groom exchanged vows in Arabic, promising honor, loyalty, and protection, while each secretly planned the other's destruction. As midnight approached, the celebration reached its peak. The couple was escorted to their suite on the hotel's top floor, rose petals scattered on marble floors, champagne chilling in crystal buckets. The door closed behind them, and the performance finally ended. The presidential suite fell silent except for the distant sound of Dubai's traffic far below. Ahmed's mask slipped first. The respectful groom vanished, replaced by something cold and calculating. He walked to his suitcase and pulled out a thick manila folder. "I know who you really are," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "I know about London. I know about him. I know everything." Layla's face went pale, exactly as Ahmed had imagined it would. He opened the folder, revealing photographs of her with her university boyfriend, printed conversations, detailed surveillance reports. 2 years of stalking and investigation laid out like evidence in a court case. "You thought you could deceive me," Ahmed continued, his voice rising with righteous anger. "You thought you could make a fool of me, of my family, of everything we stand for. But I've been watching you. I've been documenting your lies. And now, everyone will know what you really are." But instead of the breakdown he expected, instead of tears and pleas for forgiveness, Layla did something that shattered Ahmed's world. She smiled. "I know," she said simply. "I've known it was you all along." Now it was Ahmed's turn to go pale. Layla reached into her wedding dress and pulled out her own phone, showing him a recording app that had been running all evening. Then she pulled out her own folder, thicker than his. "I know about Sarah, about Fatima, about Nu," she said, naming his previous victims. "I know about your sick obsession with destroying women. I know about your private investigator, your fake social media accounts, your systematic harassment campaigns. I have recordings of you planning this whole thing." Ahmed's carefully constructed world began to crumble. The hunter was realizing he had been hunted. "You're not the only one who can play games," Layla continued, her voice growing stronger. "I've been building a case against you for months. I've contacted your previous victims. I have evidence of your stalking, your harassment, your criminal behavior. By tomorrow morning, every news outlet in Dubai will know exactly what kind of monster you are." The psychological battle that followed was unlike anything either of them had anticipated. Ahmed's rage at being outsmarted by a woman he had considered his prey collided with Layla's fury at being stalked and terrorized for 2 years. Neither was who they had pretended to be. The victim had become the aggressor. The hunter had become the hunted. But Layla had made one fatal miscalculation. She had assumed that exposing Ahmed would be enough to stop him. She hadn't anticipated the depth of his narcissistic rage when confronted with his own failure. When Ahmed realized he had been manipulated by the very woman he had spent 2 years trying to destroy, something inside him snapped. The psychological warfare became physical. Ahmed's hands found Layla's throat. She fought back, but she was smaller, weaker. The struggle was brief and brutal. In his rage at being beaten at his own game, Ahmed committed the one act that would destroy not just Layla, but himself and both families. When the violence ended, the suite was eerily quiet. 2 phones lay on the marble floor, still recording. Evidence of both their schemes was scattered around the room. His surveillance files, her counter-investigation documents, recordings of their mutual deception. Hidden in Layla's belongings, police would later find a suicide note she had written as a backup plan, prepared to destroy herself rather than let Ahmed destroy her reputation. The twisted irony was complete. Both had gotten exactly what they planned for, each other's total destruction. Neither family would get what they desperately needed. The perfect wedding had become the perfect crime scene, and Dubai's elite would be forced to confront the darkness hiding behind their golden facades. As dawn broke over the city's glittering skyline, the most expensive wedding in Dubai's history had become its most shocking murder case. The hunter and the hunted had destroyed each other, leaving behind only questions that would haunt everyone involved. What happens when the perfect crime goes perfectly wrong? When predator meets predator and both refuse to back down? The answer was written in blood on marble floors, and it would change Dubai forever. When Dubai police entered the presidential suite that morning, they expected to find a typical domestic violence case. What they discovered instead was evidence of the most elaborate psychological warfare campaign in the city's history. The crime scene told a story so twisted that even seasoned investigators struggled to comprehend its full scope. Both phones were still recording when police arrived. Hours of audio revealed the shocking truth. This wasn't a simple murder, but the violent climax of a 2-year game of mutual psychological torture. Ahmed's voice could be heard detailing his surveillance operation, while Layla's responses revealed her own counter-investigation. Neither victim nor perpetrator, both were predators who had hunted each other to the death. The evidence scattered around the suite painted a picture of systematic stalking that went far beyond anything police had seen before. Ahmed's files contained hundreds of photographs of Layla taken without her knowledge, detailed psychological profiles, and records of every person he had paid to gather information about her. But equally disturbing were Layla's own documents, recordings of Ahmed's conversations, evidence of his previous victims, and a carefully planned strategy to destroy his reputation. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered Ahmed's private investigator, a man named Rashid who specialized in what he euphemistically called reputation management. Under interrogation, Rashid broke down and confessed to 2 years of systematic stalking. He revealed that Ahmed wasn't just obsessed with Layla. He had hired Rashid to destroy 3 other women before her. He was sick, Rashid told investigators, his hands shaking as he spoke. He would spend hours studying these women, learning their fears, their weaknesses. Then he would create elaborate plans to humiliate them publicly. He called it cleansing Dubai of impure women. Rashid's confession exposed a network of men who targeted educated, independent women with past relationships. They used social media manipulation, paid informants, and systematic harassment to drive their victims into isolation and despair. Ahmed was their leader, a man who had turned misogyny into a twisted crusade. The investigation exploded both families' carefully constructed lies. Layla's father, the respected government official, was revealed to be deeply corrupt. Financial records showed years of bribes and illegal deals. His wife's medical bills, the supposed reason for their financial desperation, were fabricated. They had used their daughter's marriage as a shield to avoid prosecution for their crimes. Ahmed's family was equally corrupt. Their real estate empire was built on forged documents and government fraud. Police found evidence of money laundering, tax evasion, and bribery stretching back decades. Ahmed's mother wasn't just socially conscious. She was addicted to prescription drugs, spending thousands each month to maintain her habit while pretending to be a pillar of traditional values. The marriage that both families had celebrated as a union of honor was revealed to be nothing more than a business transaction between 2 criminal enterprises. Neither family had cared about their children's well-being. They had used them as pawns in their own desperate games of survival. As news of the murder spread, 3 women came forward with stories that made investigators' blood run cold. Sarah, a former teacher, described how Ahmed had systematically destroyed her career by spreading rumors about her past relationships. She had been forced to leave Dubai in shame, her family disowning her after Ahmed's evidence was revealed. Fatima, a successful businesswoman, told of how Ahmed had infiltrated her social circle, gathering information about her university years abroad. When he exposed her past, she lost her job, her friends, and nearly her life. She had attempted suicide after the public humiliation, surviving only by chance. New, a journalist, revealed how Ahmed had used fake social media accounts to harass her for months before publicly exposing her relationship history. The campaign had been so thorough that she had fled the country, abandoning her career and family to escape the shame. All 3 women described the same pattern: months of psychological torture followed by public humiliation. Ahmed had destroyed their lives methodically, using their own shame and society's judgment as weapons. What they didn't know was that he had been documenting everything, keeping detailed records of each woman's destruction like trophies. Ahmed was found 3 days later in the desert outside Dubai, dehydrated and delirious. He had fled to his family's desert compound, but paranoia had driven him further into the wilderness. When police discovered him, he was raving about cleansing and purification, his mind clearly broken by the realization that his perfect plan had destroyed him instead of his victim. His confession was more disturbing than investigators had prepared for. Ahmed showed no remorse for Layla's death, only anger at being caught. He described his victims not as human beings but as problems to be solved, corruption to be cleansed from Dubai's society. "I was protecting other men from being deceived," he told investigators, his eyes wild with fanatical certainty. These women were living lies, pretending to be pure while hiding their shameful pasts. "I was doing God's work by exposing them." Police found his personal manifesto, a 100-page document detailing his belief that modern women were corrupting traditional values. He had planned to expand his operation, recruiting other men to help him cleanse Dubai of what he called deceptive women. The murder was never part of his plan. It was the result of his rage at being outsmarted by someone he considered inferior. The investigation revealed that Ahmed had been building towards something much larger than individual harassment campaigns. He had been creating a network of like-minded men who shared his twisted beliefs about women and purity. The murder had stopped what could have become a systematic campaign of terror against Dubai's educated women. As the full scope of the conspiracy became clear, Dubai's elite were forced to confront uncomfortable truths about their own society. The perfect wedding had become a mirror, reflecting the darkness that could hide behind traditions of honor and respectability. The case that began as a simple murder had uncovered corruption, systematic abuse, and a culture that had enabled a predator's campaign of terror. The consequences would ripple through Dubai's highest circles, destroying reputations and forcing a reckoning with values that had protected the guilty while silencing the innocent. What happens when a society's darkest secrets are exposed? When the pursuit of perfection creates monsters? The final chapter of this story would force Dubai to choose between protecting its image and protecting its people. The trial of Ahmed began 6 months after the murder, and from the moment the courtroom doors opened, it was clear this case would shake Dubai to its foundations. International media descended on the city, drawn by a story that exposed the dark intersection of tradition, technology, and terror. What they found was a society being forced to confront its own reflection in the most uncomfortable way possible. The prosecution's case was devastating. Evidence revealed not just a murder, but a systematic campaign of terror that had been operating in Dubai's elite circles for years. The courtroom fell silent as prosecutors displayed Ahmed's surveillance files, hundreds of photographs of Layla taken without her knowledge, detailed psychological profiles, and records of payments made to informants who had infiltrated her social circle. But the most powerful moments came when Ahmed's previous victims took the stand. Sarah, the former teacher, testified about losing her career and reputation after Ahmed's exposure campaign. Her voice shook as she described the systematic harassment that had driven her from Dubai, the way her own family had turned against her based on rumors and manufactured evidence. Fatima, the businesswoman who had attempted suicide, spoke about the months of psychological torture that had preceded her public humiliation. She described how Ahmed had used her own shame against her, manipulating societal expectations to turn her into a pariah. Her testimony revealed how perfectly Ahmed had weaponized traditional values to destroy modern women. Nu, the journalist who had fled the country, testified via video link from her exile. She described the network of fake social media accounts that had harassed her, the way Ahmed had turned her friends against her, and the ultimate revelation that had destroyed her life. Her words hung in the courtroom air like an accusation against everyone who had enabled this behavior. The family's complicity was laid bare for all to see. Evidence showed how both sets of parents had ignored warning signs, prioritized financial gain over their children's safety, and actively participated in covering up the crimes that had funded their lifestyles. Dubai's elite, many of whom had attended the wedding, were forced to confront their own role in enabling a system that had protected predators while silencing victims. The defense's strategy shocked even seasoned court observers. Ahmed's lawyers argued that their client had been driven to madness by the deceptive behavior of modern women who pretended to be traditional while hiding shameful pasts. They claimed that rapid social change had caused his psychological breakdown, making him unable to distinguish between reality and his twisted fantasies. "My client was a product of a society in transition," the defense attorney argued. He was raised with certain values, certain expectations about women and purity, and when confronted with what he perceived as deception, his mind could not process the contradiction. The defense even attempted to blame Layla for her own death, arguing that her decision to confront Ahmed rather than confess had provoked his violent response. This strategy backfired spectacularly, revealing the depth of misogyny that had enabled Ahmed's crimes in the first place. The judge's verdict was swift and decisive. Ahmed was found guilty of first-degree murder, systematic stalking, and conspiracy to commit harassment. The sentence was life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. But the judge's statement went far beyond simple justice. It was a condemnation of the thinking that had made such crimes possible. This case represents the dangerous extreme of what happens when traditional values become weapons of control, the judge declared. When the pursuit of purity becomes a justification for psychological torture, when family honor becomes more important than human dignity, we create monsters who believe they are doing God's work while destroying innocent lives. The ripple effects of the trial transformed Dubai society in ways no one had anticipated. Both families were destroyed, not just by legal consequences, but by the social ostracism that followed their exposure. Ahmed's parents lost their business empire and faced their own criminal charges. Layla's family saw her father imprisoned for corruption, while her mother struggled with the guilt of having failed to protect her daughter. But from the ashes of tragedy came unexpected change. Layla's younger sister, inspired by the courage of the women who had testified, became a powerful advocate for women's rights. She established a foundation in her sister's memory, working to protect women from the kind of systematic harassment that had claimed Layla's life. Dubai's legal system was forced to confront gaps in its protection of women. New laws were enacted specifically targeting psychological harassment and stalking, with severe penalties for those who used traditional values to justify abusive behavior. The wedding industry faced increased scrutiny, with new requirements for counseling and background checks designed to prevent arranged marriages from becoming traps. The case sparked intense public debate about the role of tradition in modern society. Women's advocacy groups clashed with conservative voices, while religious leaders were forced to clarify that true Islamic values protected women rather than enabling their abuse. Social media companies implemented new policies to prevent the kind of systematic harassment that Ahmed had pioneered. Psychological experts used the case to educate the public about the warning signs of dangerous obsessive behavior. They explained how seemingly traditional values could be twisted into justifications for stalking and abuse, how social media could be weaponized to destroy lives, and how families and communities could unknowingly enable predators. The case forced Dubai to ask uncomfortable questions about itself. How many other women had been silently destroyed by men who believed they were protecting traditional values? How many families had prioritized reputation over their children's safety? How many people had looked the other way while systematic abuse occurred in their social circles? What this tragedy revealed was both disturbing and enlightening. It showed how perfectionism and control could become deadly weapons, how reducing women to their sexual history created a culture of shame that predators could exploit, and how the complicity of families and society in maintaining harmful traditions could enable systematic abuse. The murder of Layla had been a turning point, not just for her family, but for an entire society. Dubai was forced to choose between protecting its image and protecting its people. The choice it made would determine whether her death had meaning or whether other women would suffer the same fate. As the courtroom emptied and the media attention faded, one question remained. Would Dubai learn from this tragedy, or would it return to the silence that had enabled such horrors in the first place? The answer would be written in the lives of the women who came after Layla, and whether they would be protected or abandoned by a society finally forced to see itself clearly. The mirror had cracked, and there was no going back to the beautiful lie of perfection that had hidden such ugly truths. The only question now was whether Dubai would use this painful reflection to become something better, or whether it would simply learn to hide its darkness more carefully.